Welcome to Jim White's Opportunity Investing Webinar. Jim has been investing, coaching executives, and turning around companies for over 30 years. Now your host, Dr. Jim White.
Hello, this is Jim White. It is April the 28th, 2020, and welcome to my Opportunity Investing Webinar. Our session today is a continuation from last week, how to invest in QOZs, Qualified Opportunity Zones, and how to survive during and post COVID-19. Let's do a brief review from last week, and we discussed 5 major points last week. And point number 1 was how to respond in a crisis to protect your business. How to respond in a crisis and protect your business. The other point that we discussed was how to ensure your business can continue continuity and stability, I should say. The other point that we discussed, we spent a lot of time on, was how to accelerate through the recovery once you experience this crisis. And the other point that we discussed was how to retool your business for what I call the new world. Now, today we will talk about how you, and remember last week I said I talked about you, CEO, in the context of the owner, the team, and individual business, how you, the CEO, business owners, and teams can move what I call from a response mode, to a retool mode after a crisis, okay? But before we move forward, I must get a few things off my chest that will most likely get a lot of kickback or maybe some attaboys. I never know, but I cannot not bring this up. What's referred to as the PPP program, right? We all know it. The CARES, the SBA program. Now we have a second round. But what surprised me when I started looking at some of the data recently, some of the fact checkers, more than 200 public companies applied for more than $870 million in PPP money. You know who you are. I was debating where to run through the list tonight, but I know that would not be probably a good thing to do. But it just goes to show us that when we enter those applications and when we apply for such, we got to keep in mind we got over, I'm going to call it 50% of the U.S. economy is made up of small business. And if you are a publicly traded company that has liquidity, whatever would make you think that you should even apply for such? Now, it goes on that a lot of these companies that did receive money, and there's some major brands that received, 30, 40, 70, $80 million, even some sports franchises. Now, they've gone on record and say, we're going to return the money, or we have returned the money. Well, what in the world were you doing to even apply for it to begin with, right? So I just could not help but just to bring that up. And it's to me, it's just shameful. So let the tweets begin, let the email feedback begin. But it just bothered me when I read that, and we're here with 25 million people or so that's on unemployment, and we're still in this crisis. And like I said, we got the second round that's been approved. The money we did get it to the hands of the small business. So if you're a publicly traded company and if you have liquidity, please do not get in the way. Allow the small businesses to be able to get the PP so we can continue to employ people. Now, Having said that, like I said, we'll let the tweets and the email and feedback and LinkedIn occur, but it's just not the right thing to do. So what I'm going to do tonight is to drill down. My favorite word for you that's been following these sessions over the past few weeks. I'm going to drill down on this thing I'm going to say from response to a crisis to retooling. I think that's a good word in the new world, because I think we'll all agree the world as we knew it, say in January, will never be the same again. You've heard me say in other sessions, in every opportunity, in every crisis, it is an opportunity. There's opportunity, and I know it's hard, especially when you look at such numbers. And I was thinking, where I would even bring this up or not, but I think I've shared that I am a Vietnam veteran. I did 2 tours in Vietnam in the 68 period, first year, and also have a disability. And we entered Vietnam, 1961, I believe it was, when President Kennedy sent the first Green Berets to Vietnam. And then in 65 started escalating. And like I said, I entered the country in 68. And then from 68 to what we finally got out of it in 75, somewhere in that period of time. And we lost over 58,000 Americans in that conflict. Well, as of today, the latest number in this COVID-19 issue, just in the United States alone, we've lost over 58,000. And it just hit me. For as long as that conflict was in Vietnam, long as all in the conflict in Iraq and Afghanistan, those were conflicts. That's the word I use. Well, COVID-19 is a crisis, and when we respond to resources, we didn't always have all the resources that we needed when I was in Vietnam. We didn't. So you improvise. But the point I'm making is we did have resources. We did have the logistics. And here we are in less than 6 weeks or 7 weeks. Unfortunately, we've lost over 58,000 Americans to this virus, right? So when we have a crisis, you've got to respond to it, and you got to throw everything that you have at the problem. You got to throw everything at the problem. And I'm going to hesitate to be critical of our federal government, but I can say we could certainly do a better job. And so I should probably leave it at that, right? So I hope you have your pad and your pen or your favorite device, and because I'm going to give you some very specific how-to, very specific, and everything that I share with you is based on experience. It's not based on academia, and there's nothing wrong with academia. I love academics. I love education, sport education, but everything that I share with you, I have done. I have used in some fashion or another in over my 45 plus years career, right? So I've used it. So hang in, take some notes, and of course you can always come back and look at the replay as well. So how CEOs, teams, owners can move from the response to retool. Now, uncertainty this far reaching makes it hard to control the challenges at hand, let alone think years ahead, right? And to think you're saying, geez, I can't think about tomorrow, Jim, and you're gonna give me some tools to think years ahead. Yes, I am, because unfortunately we got to balance, because this too will pass. We are a resilient nation. This will pass. But CEOs, business owners, and team who balance urgent actions for today with planning for the future can better guide what happens next. I want to repeat that. Owners, business owners, CEOs, a management team whose balances the urgent today with planning for the future can better guide what happens next. Now, a lot of you that are watching this evening, watching the replay, a lot of you have been in a lot of my off-sites over the years from my consulting practice and the businesses that I have the pleasure to lead today. You've heard me say on many occasions, for every hour of productive planning that you spend, you save 4 when you go to implement. Fact, fact, fact. So here are some valuable questions that can help you, the executive, your boards, focus your efforts as you start thinking about the future. Yeah, you might say, well, Jim, once again, I'm a small business. I'm trying to figure out how to keep my doors open. I'm trying to figure out how to make payroll this week. I am trying to figure out all of those things out. And you want me to sit and listen to you and watch you and take notes and with some questions that I need to be asking myself in the moment, and which also help me for the future. Yes, I do. Because these questions that I am going to share with you are thought-provoking questions. There can also be wordsmith a little bit for your personal life, your career, your business. So let's just get started. Okay, let's dig into it. So the question that you need to be asking yourself and your team and your individual, what's the big idea that could shape your industry and your firm for the next decade? Big question. What is the big idea that could shape your industry and your firm for the next decade? What's the big idea that could shape your career for the next decade? You see, interchangeable. All these questions are just huge. I have used them over and over and over the years in all of my consulting, coaching, and development and organizational development. Now, what multi-year trends have been irrevocably pulled forward? So what trends have been pulled forward that is both positive and negative? Okay. What are the new trends we need to confront? Okay. So what are the new trends we need to confront? Well, some of the new trends may be working remote, right? That's one of the things that we've talked, and I've had several op-eds, fortunately, has been published recently. And one of them that was today was just talking about remote workers, right? So again, what are the new trends we need to confront? How would customer behavior shift? Now that's a big one. How will customer behavior shift? So you think about your industry based on this COVID-19, which we're in, and post-COVID-19, how will your customer behavior shift? Big question. Now, a lot of the smaller businesses may be asking, Jim, I don't have time to be asking these questions. I don't have time for that. And I would say to my friend, you can afford not to address these questions. So who defines excellence? Is your customer, right? Who pays your bills? It's your customer, right? So you better know what their behavior shift's going to be post-COVID-19. Now look how fast things are changing right in the middle of this pandemic. The American ingenuity and entrepreneurship is just rapidly at work. I don't know about you, but my inbox is just filled on the hourly basis sometimes about some new way of doing things. And I often think about that when we're communicating with you, and I often think about when I'm getting ready to do one of our webcasts, what do I have to say that's already not being said in a different way, right? And I actually struggle with that sometimes, and I always come back and answer my question is experience, 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 experience. That's the difference in sometimes experience. A lot of people will ask very similar questions that I'm posing tonight, and some don't. And some don't even think about asking these questions. So, what will the next generation of customers that fuel your growth be different than our core customers? In other words, what's the next customer? It's going to fuel your growth. How are they going to be different from your core customers prior to the pandemic? I ask that question quite often in a different way to a lot of our portfolio companies. And I think we talked last week, we talked about our core customers. And I have a process that I've used for years and years and years when I'm talking about customers. And you've heard me mention the Pareto Principle, right? The 80-20 rule. So the 80-20 rules, that is, 20% of your customers are going to bring in 80% of your revenue, and so on and so forth, right? So once again, you've got to think now, today, even though you're probably thinking, how do I stay in business and how I'll stay out of bankruptcy? Well, I know that's going to happen. I'm not naive. Unfortunately, that is going to occur. But they will, even if that does occur, I say to you, there will be another day. There will be another day. There will be another day. Because if you're a small business, you have the entrepreneurial spirit and you took the risk in order to start that business. If for some reason you have to close your doors, don't give up. There will be another day. And you will come back bigger and better than ever. I know that to be true. Because there's been these cycles up and down over the years. Been through a lot of them. Okay? Now, how might business boundaries be redrawn? As supply chains and operating models are reconfigured and the public sector resets its role. How might business boundaries be redrawn as supply chains and different operating models are reconfigured to address the public sector as we reset? We're in a process of a reset. And again, you can turn on any channel and you're hearing people talk about that. But again, I hope my words resonate from a level of experience that actually resets. And that's some of the things that we do with our companies. Even prior to the pandemic, we were looking, how do we do it better? How do we serve our customers better? How do we generate more revenue in order to be able to put back into the local economy and help our employees grow? That's a big thing to me and my staff, our board, and our shareholders. Now, how do you build adaptability? Now, that's a big word, being adaptable. You've got to adapt. You've got to be able to spin on a dime when a crisis occurs. How do we build adaptability and resilience into your strategy and operations? Now, you can spend hours, days, and weeks answering that question alone. How do we being your company, how do we build adaptability and resilience in your strategy and operation? Well, let's reframe that question a little bit, especially right in the middle of the pandemic. You might ask, the people that are in the what's called the critical business flow, and then we have people are in the home, our kids are out of school. I was just talking to one of my colleagues earlier today about this very thing, because our business in the Salinas Valley area is in the critical chain, right? And in the food industry. So managing the operation on a daily basis, and then to go home and where your wife's been at home all day, probably she hasn't been out of the house and taking care of the kids, and then you you come home and got to flow back into that, and it's a real. So you got to be adaptable, and you got to be resilient to be able to get through that. So once again, from a business perspective, how do we build adaptability and resilience into your strategy and operations, right? Now, next question. Hope you're taking some notes here. Next question. Which ways of working that you are discovered during the crisis should we preserve and build upon? I've had that discussion with many people today. Which ways of working that you, all of us have discovered during this crisis should we preserve and build on? What way of working? What's working? What's not working? Right? And that's another term that I use. We get up on a daily basis in our business, and I'm always asking a question. I'm always doing a what I call a brain scan. I'm always saying in a business, what's working? What's not working? What's working? What's not working? And that's all. That's the way you grow. Where we're in a pandemic or where we're not in a pandemic, that's how we grow. Now, next question. I'm going to use the word you need. I get some kickback on that. Or you should, or I encourage, or which way the message resonates. How do we increase the intensity and speed of our learning as we navigate the uncertainty ahead? How do we increase the intensity and the speed of our learning as we navigate the uncertainty ahead? Well, again, I've had that discussion with my team many times today. Speed, intensity. How do we do it? How do we get better? Again, how do we turn on a dime? How can we get out ahead of the curve? How do we increase the intensity and the speed? And the word I'm choosing to use, intensity. Not that we're desperate. Intensity, passion, and speed of our learning as we navigate the uncertainty ahead. Our learning, right? And that requires some dedication, some midnight oil, right? Some dedication. Now, there's a few things that I want to continue to talk about. So those are the questions that I wanted to that I left off last week, and that I wanted to pick up and continue. But I thought with a fresh set of eyes, it would be much better to kind of do a session 2 of this to be able to go through all of those questions for you. So one thing that I am going to share, and those are the questions. That's all I had for you tonight. That's all I wanted to do. But I do want to share a couple of things more before we conclude this evening. I wanted to talk about opportunity investing, and that's what we're talking about: investing, opportunity investing. And I wanted to bring everybody's attention to a new it's House Bill HR 6529. HR 6529. Now that House bill has been introduced as a result of the pandemic to make some changes, and these changes would be welcome changes. I am not going to get into those changes right now, but I just wanted to make you aware of a few things that's happening. I think it's currently in Ways and Means. So HR 6529, keep a close eye on that, and we will keep you posted as time moves forward. The next thing that I want to say today, and the New York, New Jersey, Greenwich, and I'm currently in Greenwich, Connecticut, at our home, and Greenwich and our home office, and I had a very special tribute today. The Blue Angels and the Thunderbirds. They did a flyby down the East River, New Jersey, and just honoring all the first responders. The city of New York has been absolutely devastated, so it was a good way. And I don't know who facilitated that, but I think it was a great tribute to the first responders. And it's not to say that which I'm sure we could do same thing throughout the U.S., but I just wanted to acknowledge that as well. A lot of you may know, but I use the word an old pilot, an old aerobatic pilot myself. So anytime I see that, I have a special place in my heart for the men and women that facilitate these events. So this is all I wanted to do this evening, was to be able to just bring it full circle. And I wanted to specifically keep it short and sweet and to the point this evening, and give you those questions that you need to think about. And I encourage you to think about as you are planning your day and as you're planning for the future. These questions, if you're set with these questions and ask those questions and answer those questions, you're going to be amazed at what it's going to do for, number one, your confidence. You're going to be amazed what it's going to do for your spirit. And like I said, you can take the same questions and you could repurpose them and ask them and put them in the contents of your career. So at that, I am going to conclude this evening. I'm going to say thank you very much for sharing some time with us. And as always, our intent is to give you content that is real and that you could take and put into action. So you can always email us if you have any questions. We've been getting a lot of questions through LinkedIn. Continue that and bear with us as we address them. We will respond to each and every one as fast as we can. So thank you for that. And thank you for supporting opportunity zones, opportunity funds. Like I said, there's not a better time for us to be taking a look at where to invest in this current and then post COVID-19. So with that, I'm going to say thank you very much. Have a great evening, and we will talk to you soon. Good night.
Thank you for your participation and interest in Jim White's Opportunity Investing webinar. To stay in touch with Jim, please go to www.opportunityinvesting.com.